On this installment of our second Tuesdays of the Month history program, come with us as Marie Poinan explores the parish of the Holy Cross Church.
The following is a presentation from the Greece Historical Society. The second Tuesdays of the Month programs from the Greece Historical Society are sponsored by members of the Greece Historical Society and by the sponsors of advertisements in the newsletter. Space for the second Tuesdays of the Month programs is provided by the Greece Public Library.
The history of the Holy Cross Parish, presented by Marie Poinan, recorded Tuesday, May 13th, 2025.
Well, welcome everyone. I'm Bill Sowers. I think most of you will probably know who I am. And we, of course, are the Greece Historical Society, and we appreciate the library letting us use this room. And we got somebody in the back says you can't hear. So how do we adjust the volume?
Just talk louder, Bill. You're on the line.
Well, I want to introduce somebody here that probably nobody knows or is aware of. But Marie Poinan has been a long-time historian, storyteller for the Shalat community, and she's been a long-time volunteer at the Shalat Genesee Lighthouse and the Greece Historical Society. Some of her accomplishments over the years, she has written and published more than 10 books on local history. She wrote and published Discover the Harbor District in Shalat, and the Shalat Community Association from 2000 to 2009. She researched and designed a series of outdoor panels depicting the history of Shalat for the Bill Davis Overlook. She co-wrote with Joanne Ward-Sager the Pioneer Families of Greece Volume 1. And if you're waiting for Volume 2, it will be out
End of June.
End of June. She co-wrote some other books about, with other volunteers, Winning the Voting Priest, Our Town in World War II, Hometown Sports. She researched and she secured a grant in 2013 for the first Pomeroy Foundation historic marker in the city of Rochester, and that's at the
Ladder Beach House.
Ladder Beach House. Let's see, a couple other things. In 2015, she researched and interviewed the Odenbach family and published a 3-volume set on the Odenbach shipbuilding. In 2015, she helped coordinate and restore the Shalat Cemetery. And in 2016, Marie received the Greece Chamber of Commerce History Award. And in 2023, received an award for excellence in promoting local history from the Association of Public Historians of New York and the New York State Museum. Wow. So please welcome.
All right, am I talking loud enough? I have to apologize for my voice because I just got over a 10-day bout with sinusitis, so I'm not talking too well. So if I happen to crackle a little, I beg your pardon in advance. Okay, I'm gonna take a tally here, just for the heck of it. How many people here belong to Mother of Sorrows? How many people here belong to Holy Cross? Okay, good, because I'm gonna read from the beginning of the book, and I didn't want to offend anybody, so I figured, I better check out the audience before I started doing this. The year is 1843. It's the day after St. Patrick's Day. Squire Nicholas Reed, one of the church leaders from Mother of Sorrows and the local justice of the peace, he donated the land where the church now sits and the graveyard stands. He took a ride down to Shalat, and he was warming his hands at Joe Stutson's bar. It's at the corner of River Street. And he asked, "Is there any news from Shalat?" "Yes, there is, Judge," said Joe. "Yesterday, somebody hung an effigy of St. Patrick from the mast of a schooner in the harbor." Squire Reed pondered a moment, and then he said, "Served him right. Any saint who would be caught dead in a place like Shalat ought to be hung." Needless to say, Holy Cross has always been considered the young unwanted stepchild of Mother of Sorrows. So good thing Holy Cross outnumbers Mother of Sorrows here today. The reason for this program is it was generated from a program which we did at Holy Cross on September 15th, marking the anniversary of the founding of the parish. So it was an all-day event, and it was on Sunday the 15th. Bishop Matano came and said the Mass. We also did a tour of the church, and we did a tour of the school. Joanne Ford Snyder, my co-author for the Pioneer book, she went to Holy Cross, so she did the school tour, and Aileen DePonte, who's sitting right here, she also did the school tour, so thank you again.
I didn't.
This is the family center. This is what it looked like when we set it all up. There's a series of 18 posters that were around, and lucky me, I got asked to do the history part. So I got access to all this stuff that was in the attic over at the rectory. And then they were bringing up stuff from the basement of the church, so I got to go through all of it in about 3 months. The one thing that we did that day, which people really got a kick out of, we did, obviously I'm a genealogist, so the thing I wanted to do is the family tree. And so we started with a tree that the ladies assembled. It took them like 5 hours to assemble the tree. And then those are little Post-it notes in the shape of leaves. So all along the bottom, the straight line, are the founding parishes, the founding families of that parish. And then everybody else who's a parishioner today came in, signed something, and went on their merry way. So, and they got a cross after they signed for the tree. One of the most interesting finds we had that were in the attic were the original Stations of the Cross. There were paintings about 2 feet by 3 feet. And so we brought 3 of them down and put them on display. So it was a beginning parish. They didn't even get a pastor for 10 years at the parish. So I'm sure probably in the back of their mind saying, I don't know if this parish is going to. So they just got paintings for the Stations of the Cross. So now to talk a little bit about the history of Charlotte. In 1863, even before the year before it became a village, Charlotte was just a small settlement. There were less than 10 Catholic families in Charlotte. There were dirt paths for the streets. There were orchards, about 100 houses, boats, and grain elevators. That's it. And the only large employer was the blast furnace. Holy Cross was dedicated on May 3rd, 1863, and it was started by Father John Maurice, who was a missionary priest sent by Bishop Timon of Buffalo to Mother of Sorrows, which the early days it wasn't called their Mother of Sorrows, it was called St. Ambrose Church. There were people who wanted to start a satellite church because it was too far for the people from Charlotte to go up the hill. There was like about an hour drive by horse in the old days. So they said, let's try to do it. So Father Maurice would come down and do a Sunday school at Andrew Mulligan's house. And the house was located on Lighthouse Street. It would be right at the back entrance where Lighthouse Street goes into the lighthouse property. Right about there, right behind the church, was Andrew Mulligan's house, and then that became the first school. The church was enlarged several times over so that it could eventually hold 400 people, and the first lay officers of the church were Andrew Mulligan, William Waters, and Patrick Tiernan. The church was formed in like a cross. Now this map from 1902 shows where the church was, and then you see Andrew Mulligan's house. That was his second house. The red arrow is pointing to the church. Right below the church is the rectory, and behind the rectory was the convent. Here's a couple of the first livers that showed the transfer of the property from Father Maurice and to Father Maurice. He had two pieces of property, one from Luther Jeffords, who barely lived in Charlotte at all. He was just an investor. And then the second one was from Peter Conway, and he sold him the second piece of property that would be about where the priest house is today, the rectory. So it's just those little two pieces of land, and there was nothing where the parking lot is today. That wasn't even acquired until the 1950s. This was the first resident pastor. He came 10 years afterwards. Father Maurice was the pastor of both places. Now, what goes around comes around.
Yeah.
Today, it's the same thing. The pastor of Mother of Sorrows is now the pastor of Holy Cross. What we did was in the book that we did for the event, I listed all the priests. This is from the poster that I did for the inside of the auditorium. But every pastor is listed. There's a picture of him and the accomplishments of what happened while he was in office there. One of my favorite talking points is Father John Fitzgerald. He came in 1877. He was the pastor when the Medina Stone Church was built. He also built the first school. And I promised Father Whelan, God rest his soul, I said, Father, don't get me started because I'm going to tell the story about Father Fitzgerald. He goes, oh, don't do it. I said, no, I won't do it until after you're gone. So this is my first chance to talk about Father Fitzgerald. This is the way the original church was. The minaret on the front and the tower was not there. But you see, there's already a change in the Medina Stone.
Yeah. Wow.
The new church cost $13,000, and the amazing fact was they held so many fairs, and they had a trip over to Coburg, Ontario for $1. Everything was to pay for the new church, and they paid for it entirely. There was no debt for that church whatsoever, and we're talking 40 families, and then whoever they got to go on the boat with them. Thanks to Fred Amato and the Charlotte Genesee Lighthouse, this is the only picture, or the first picture that we have of Holy Cross. And you can see the minaret, the tower that was there. I kept checking and checking. It was there in 1934. I have a feeling that they did not take it down until they put the addition on with the crying room at the front of the church. So I think it stayed there, but I can't prove anything. But it was there in 1934. They're still talking about it then. But that's it, and you can see the entrance that was in the back. The first school was built by Richard Thorpe. Richard Thorpe came from English Road. His family was written about in the first volume of our Pioneers of Greece. And surprisingly enough, it was run by the Sisters of St. Joseph. After the school burned down in 1895, Bishop McQuaid came and he staffed it with Sisters of Mercy, which it has been ever since. The Sisters of Mercy came from Ireland and settled right next to St. Mary's Church. They built the convent. The original building was the one on the right, and then they built this new convent, and that's where they stayed until there was a fire in 1916. The nuns were looking for land for a summer residence, by the lake. So originally they spent $30,000 and they bought this house, which still exists on Lake Avenue, okay, and that belonged to Arthur Yates. He was the head of the BRP Railroad, and he built the docks, the coal docks in Charlotte. But he didn't live there full time, he just lived there in the summer. And then if you notice on the right, that's the barn being built at his other place that he built, corner of Greenleaf and Ladder Road, the Yates Thayer farm. So he owned both. Here's a picture of the docks, and then you can see it over here without the writing on it. There's a stone photograph. So he owned basically everything from Lake Avenue to the river. And you can see from this map in 1917, originally the nuns, the Catholic diocese was going to get the land next door, and they were going to put a Catholic cemetery there. Okay, just a little one, not to compete with Holy Sepulchre, but they never built that. They wound up selling it, and that's today where the high rise is on River Street. And Father Fitzgerald, if you'll notice, St. John's Park, he owned all of the lots that were left, and he sold them. He was quite the entrepreneur for being a priest. In 1886, he donated 2 pieces of property to the Sisters of Mercy. And then the sisters bought 2 more pieces, and for whatever reason, they never moved into the place on Lake Avenue. The priest from St. Mary's bought this, which nobody knew until we went and did the research to find out who did it. They thought the sisters bought it. Well, it turned out it was Father J.P. Stewart. He was the pastor of St. Mary's downtown, and he bought it for the sisters. Give you a second to read that if you can. It's talking about building the buying the property and building the convent. And it does talk about, down at the bottom, it talks about the Reverend Fitzgerald. They presented him with a stole for donating the 2 lots to the nuns. This is a fabulous picture. I remember seeing this when I went to do research probably 10, 15 years ago at the Mother House on Blossom Road. And so Sister Kathy was going to participate in this event on the 15th. And so I said, Sister Kathy, can you grab that one off the wall? She goes, oh no, all of our archives are now in Carolina. I don't know if it's north or south, but everything. They had to take everything from here, the archivist, everything, and ship it down there. So we had to wait and wait and wait. And 2 days before this thing showed up, here comes the picture. But it's a beautiful picture. And the thing that was nice about it is the fact that there was a cross. There were 2 crosses on both parts of the convent. And I was lucky enough to get the one cross from Ira Jacobson Post when they closed up the post. I put it on the hood of my car so you can see how big it is. And up there on the 15th, Sister Kathy manned the table. And she had the pictures of the nuns with their differing years of different habits and stuff. So the cross is sitting right there on the ground next to it. There's the picture. And if you look on the right, those of you who know Sister Kathy, that's her and her. She only brought it for purposes of comparison to the little nuns, but that was the big hit of the entire display. Now back to my favorite pastor. Sorry, Father Will. Holy Cross burned down in 1895, the school, and it was ruled to be arson. And it was front page news for about 3 months. Every day somebody would write about what was going on, because the people who were charged with the burning were Father Fitzgerald and the 2 Poinan, brother and sister. Luckily, I had done, for those of you who remember Ben O'Brien, I had done the genealogy of his family years and years before that. And all of a sudden I heard the name Poinan, and I go, wait a minute, I've seen that before. So there it is in my, there it is that I had done probably back in the 80s. And there's Nora and her little brother, John. So he wound up taking the rap for it all, because he was the one who actually torched the church. So he was sentenced to 10 years. It was commuted down to 7, and for some reason, I don't know, from reading the historical documents, don't know what happened, but he was commuted. His sentence was completely set aside by the governor of New York State because he had suffered enough. Nora disappeared from Rochester. She wound up going to Syracuse. She had a brother, Jeremiah, who lived in Syracuse. Father Fitzgerald was convicted. He was supposed to serve 10 years. He went on appeal. The appeal was denied, and then the next thing you know, he's in Newark, New Jersey, where he remained until he died. But the interesting part is, I kept reading. I tried to find a will, all this other stuff. When I found his will, he left all his earthly possessions to Nora. This is Father Payne. Father Payne is the one who rebuilt the school, and it was in the same spot as the school that had burned down. He was at Holy Cross for 17 and a half years, and he installed new pews, recarpeted the sanctuary, and bought a new pipe organ. Here's a picture of the school. There's a live photograph, and then there's another one that's just a Xerox copy, but unfortunately those are the only pictures that we have of that school. There he is with the first graduating class in the new school. You can see that they're standing in front of the school, and there were 11 graduates. Now we jump to Father Alexander McCabe. He celebrated his anniversary of being a priest, and we also celebrated the 50th anniversary of Holy Cross Parish. This came from Walt Wheelahan's scrapbook, which was sent to Bill from Las Vegas.
Yeah.
He lived in Las Vegas, so he sent the whole album, and Bill copied it and then sent it back to him. And I did find out from the cousin that he did die. Father McCabe was responsible for building the third school, which was a state-of-the-art school for its time. Also, he wanted to pay off the debt so that he could come back to celebrate his silver jubilee and have the school be completely paid for. Here's the original school as it sat. And here's Jack Floyd, who's sitting right here. He took this wonderful picture when he came home from World War II, the Battle of the Bulge, and he went up Piper Cup.
Yeah.
He went up in a Piper Cup and took all the pictures of Charlotte and all the way up to Mother Sorrows. I didn't put the one of Mother Sorrows in here. If I knew you were coming, I would have put that one in here. Now we come to Father Casey, or as I knew him, was Bishop Casey. He remodeled the church and installed a new main altar, which was, you'll see a picture of it in a minute, the difference. He also supervised the building of the grotto, and he installed a new slate roof and a new entrance at the south end of the church. He also was the one who completed the shrine of Our Lady of Peace, which is the shrine that's right there on Lake Avenue. There's the grotto, and it was built by the 4 Hoysick boys who returned from World War II, and they were so happy that they made it home in one piece that they did this and dedicated it to our Mother Mary. It was rededicated and redone many times. It was rededicated in 2014, and there's a plaque in honor of them. Here's Casey when he was appointed Monsignor. It's right in front of the grotto. And he also started the first kindergarten class at Holy Cross. So this was the first kindergarten class in 1949. I remember taking that, and anybody take that with the 2 nuns and being the one with the principal, and then you've got the pastor. Here's the difference between the 2 altars. The left was the high altar as it was. I could never find out, even in church records, what happened to it. Most of the other things I could find out what happened before and after, but I never found out what they did with that altar. And there's the new one. And when the side altars were still intact, which a lot of us remember when we were kids going to Holy Cross.
Yeah.
Of course, when I first moved down there, I came from Sacred Heart Parish, went down We lived on Beach Avenue, on the cheap side of Beach Avenue, in a cottage that had no heating. We had one, space heater in the middle. The very first winter that we were there, I had my galoshes on, and I was freezing cold. I stood right on the heater.
They melted your bones.
And I melted my galoshes right onto the heater. I was thrilled to death. But for whatever reason, she did not like what was going on in Holy Cross at the time, so I got to spend all my time going up Lake Avenue to finish at Sacred Heart. So all my friends were going to Holy Cross, and I was going to Sacred Heart, which I still remember to this day. This is Midnight Mass, 1950. How many of us can remember when the priest faced the altar, not us?
Well, here's my buddy.
This is the convent that's behind the rectory today. It was built in 1863, the same year as the house for the keeper's house for the lighthouse, 1863. It was enlarged in 1930, so it became 2 stories in 2 different areas. Beautiful building. And this is the official letter, which I found in the archives, that told the nuns, you're going to have to leave, we're closing the convent. So it's closed in 2006. The rectory, this was a fun adventure trying to find out about the rectory, because it turned out it was built by one of my husband's relatives. James Fleming lived on St. John's Park, and he was a contractor and also a parishioner at Holy Cross, so he built the rectory. I think I kind of liked it before the sign.
Yeah.
With all the side porches.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Oh.
Now we come to Father O'Malley. Father O'Malley, obviously a beloved priest that many of us remember. The thing that he did was the land, which all the parking lots right there for Holy Cross where you park today, those were all government property. It was owned by the lighthouse and then the Coast Guard. So they decided to put it up for auction, and Father O'Malley went downtown and he says, please, we could use this for parking for our church. Our parish is getting kind of full right now, and people are parking all over the place. So he bought it, and it was declared surplus land so that they could give it to the church. And then here's Father Whelan, our longest serving pastor, everybody's best friend. Every time I see his picture, I start cracking up. The best thing that Father Whelan ever did was when the Diocese of Rochester closed Holy Cross, he did not bat an eye. For the next 2 years, he fought and fought and fought to make sure that Holy Cross could reopen. And in fact, it's the #1 school in the diocese today.
Yeah.
He also was pastor when the Parish Center opened in 1999 and the Office Edition in 2004. Here's our current pastor. He's the 14th pastor of Holy Cross and also pastor of Mother Saros, Father Caucus. And the interesting thing that he did was Blessed Grimaldo. I don't know how many people know about Blessed Grimaldo, but his mother and his sister were both parishioners at Holy Cross. And so there's a painting on the left-hand side, so he moved it so it's in the sacristy now so people can enjoy it. It used to be in the walkway, in the hallway, so nobody got to see it too much. So he did that, and when it came time that we were doing all of this on the history, I said, come on, let's find out somebody that can give us the whole. So we found the Augustinellis, one's in Florida, and Susan was in California, and she had gone over there. She sent tons of pictures from where he was, where he went to school, and pictures of his mother and father too. So that's all in the book. I didn't have room to put everything, but that's a contingent from Rochester that went to see him to get beatified. And beatification means he's one step away. He's one miracle away from becoming a saint. The tower was extended for the 60th anniversary of the parish. It was in 1923. This is the plaque that is up in the choir loft today, and you can see from the arrow where the different colors of the Medina stone are.
Yeah.
So there's actually 3 colors. I never could figure out what when the first one was there, there's probably about 2 feet. That's a different color, and then that's the 3rd kind of Medina sandstone that they use. So Larry Sexton lived in a house, thank Lord for Craig Capon. He lived in this house, so he took a picture of it. So this is where the high rise is today. The street right there is Holden Street, so that would go right across into the Holy Cross parking lot, but that's where he lived. And there's the story about how he had, a sucker concession down at Ontario Beach Park, and he, had a wheelbarrow, so he took all the suckers down, and he wheeled his money back up the hill when he was done. This is something at the Charlotte, Genesee Lighthouse. They have a lot of Larry Sexton's records when he was the Justice of the Peace for the town of Greece, and he was never a lawyer, but he was also JP at Charlotte. And the reason why I picked this one is because it was Emma Pollard, the Charlotte historian, suing her tenant for non-payment. Here's pictures. On the bottom right, you can see the 3 different colors, the 1933 picture. I've never seen it covered in ivy before, so I wanted to include that picture.
Wow.
And inside the bell tower, Fred Amato, who's sitting here, took all the pictures, and thank God that he did, because it was full of bird and bird, you know what.
Yeah. Ricky.
And Rick went and he was inside the tower showing the difference of the sandstone. And there's the bell going up to the roof. And the trapdoor that goes to the first level. And that's how coated the bell was. But luckily, they wound up cleaning it, and in the book I've got the writing that's on the bell. And just in case you don't believe me, look at under the arrow, you can see all the little birdies over there. And in fact, there's one over in the window too, but you can see them all. Thank you, Fred. I don't know how you did that. I'm not going to go through all of it. Every parish has a history of its bells. They keep better track of their bells than they do of their parishioners, I think. Because they all have, and they have to go through the parish council in order to order them, and they have to say what they did with the other one, and this one burned down, and this one I sold for World War I. But there's the story of all the bells of Holy Cross. And the most historic one is there today. You can go look. It's right next to the school. Peg Roach did this in honor of her husband, Tom, and it shows the history of the bells. And the Manili Bell Company was in Troy, New York, and it was another Irishman. So all the Irish parishes always bought their bells. And by the way, everybody knows today Holy Cross is considered more of an Italian parish because of the people from the blast furnace that worked there. It started out, it was 90% Irishmen. So this is an interesting thing about the gift shop that's over on Ladder Road now. The church no longer owns the property, but this was the house that Vesta Virgil and her brother Grover grew up in. That's where it was on Lighthouse Street. So you can see the original, and this is where it is today. And it used to serve, 5 years, 6 years? The gift shop, I think, was open. I still miss it.
Yeah.
And there's a picture of Grover, and that's little Vesta.
Oh.
Now it comes with Father Fantasy.
Yeah.
And Father Fennessy's claim to fame was that he was there when the shrine to St. Anthony's was built. Completely paid for by the St. Anthony Society and the members of the parish. So the parish did not have to spend a dime on this. So if you look, there's many plaques for the people that donated. The original St. Anthony Society started incorporated, it started about 1919. They did not incorporate until 1929. And if you see the names, Mike DePalma, John Antuli, John Scipione, and Bonacci. This was from the city directory, showing all the Italian societies in Rochester, and Charlotte is the very last one. It's St. Anthony, our protector. They used to deck out the church like crazy for St. Anthony's Day. I miss that. No, he sits in the back of the church, but he was up there on by the side altar. And these are all pictures from Thomas Funeral Chapel, because Lana's mother and grandmother were part of it. There's Father Fennessy. And this is beautiful, hand done. It's made of satin and it's all hand embroidered. There it is in the room on a chair, but there it is hanging up in a banner. It's all hand stitched. It must have taken them years to do that. And in 1932, they all got together to have their pictures taken, and we're still trying to find out the names of certain people who were there. Father Wheeler was in the hospital, so we gave the framed print to Father Reef. And it's Lana Palvino from the funeral home. This is talking about the annual picnic they used to have. And this is these 63, they're talking about the St. Anthony Festival. Congrats to Lou Christopher, Pete and Archie Mateo, Joe Marinucci, Frank Ticone, Joe Trabat, and Mike DePalma was the master. The festival started in 1912, believe it or not. It included a mass, the parade, the fireworks, and eventually the blessing of the fleet. I was trying to find a picture. I got a picture of
It was on the corner of Stutson and
of them, the Gulf Station at the corner of Stutson and Atlanta, where the parking lot is today for Hose 22.
Yeah.
And my number one find has a little bit to do with the parish, but still trying to figure out who CCW is. They started doing this album in 1899, and it was a veritable goldmine. I've got 170 pages of pictures of newspaper clippings.
Wow.
There was a communion remembrance from 1918. There were old pictures in there. The top right is the picture when they got rid of the carpet and they tore up the entire floor of Holy Cross before they put in the new travertine.
Yeah.
So that, and then down at the bottom, they had tons of new paper clippings, obits. This was from 1922, saying that Mother Sorrows put in electricity.
Wow.
This I found interesting. There were pew rents. I didn't think Catholic churches had pew rents, but I guess I found out differently. And then, like I say, there were plenty of obits. And then, Jack, you're gonna like this one. Famous landmark, the home of the Holden family for 85 years was raised. Nowhere does it say where it was. Still don't know where it is, but there's a picture of Mr. and Mrs. Holden. Giles Holden, who used to be the lighthouse keeper. These are samples of the posters that we had put up. And as I mentioned before, there's a book. The church sold the books that day. They were pre-ordered. The books are all gone. I've got 18 left. So anybody who wants one, we've got them today. And then the book that Bill was talking about before, the first Pioneer book, was out 3 years ago. And the next one that's coming out at the end of June is going to be, that's Yates Stayer House at the corner of that and Greenleaf. So, thank you very much, and if anybody's got any questions, I'll be happy to answer if I can. Yes?
Yes, Marie, you mentioned the St. Anthony's Day Parade.
Yes.
I grew up down at Holy Cross Acres. I graduated from Holy Cross with Lana Polvino.
Oh, okay.
Her father, Thomas, and Lana buried my sister, mother, and father, so I really knew them pretty well. The St. Anthony's Day Parade that you mentioned, I remember vividly as a kid going to Holy Cross in the 50s and 60s. In that festival, Holy Cross used to give away 3 new cars.
Oh, yeah,
One
yeah.
on Thursday night, one
Yeah,
on
I
Friday
know
night,
you
one
can't
on
hear him in the
Saturday.
back. He went to school with Lana Palvino, and he graduated from Holy Cross, and he said that during the festival, they would give away 3 cars. Well, you gotta remember, that festival made money for that parish like you wouldn't believe.
Oh, it was,
If it weren't for the festival, I don't know how they've managed since they closed down the festival. I know it was too much work, and there were a lot of people getting older, and they just, didn't think it would go, so that's why they stopped it. But that was the lifeblood of the parish. Plus, you saw people that you didn't see from one year to the next. Oh, I'll see you at the festival. Okay, so everybody went to the Holy Cross Festival.
the 3 priests that were there for most of the time I was there were Father Fennessy, Father O'Malley, and Father Cushing, who just passed away a little while ago. And there were 3 garages for the 3 priests. And all the nuns in the convent had 1 car.
Yeah. You're saying that there were 3 priests and there were 3-car garage. And all the nuns in the convent had 1 car.
Yeah, they didn't have a garage.
Anybody else?
I'd like to bring the microphone
Yeah.
to you so everybody can hear.
Very good job.
Thank you.
Although generally I can talk about it myself. No, I understand. So first of all, thank you very much. I have to say that I probably learned 80%, right? That of everything stated, maybe I knew at max 20%. So this was great at how much I learned. But my observation is not really a question, because I was not aware of this. We have had 14 priests at this parish. 2 of them became bishops. Think of that. Think of that percentage, 1 out of 7. You're not going to find that very often, so that's a credit to the Holy Cross community that they could develop people to that extent. So, thank you.
Anybody else? Oh, wait, in the back.
20, yeah.
Did anybody figure out what the motive was for the arson of the school?
Yeah, why did they write it up?
Why did they do
With the fire.
arson? The arson.
He had a question about the fire, the arson. He had a question about the arson.
I'm sorry, I missed the question about the fire.
What was the motive?
What was the motive behind it?
Motive.
Most things that Father Fitzgerald had were heavily insured. 2 weeks before the school burned down, he went down and tried to get more insurance on the school, and they refused him. Now, nowhere does it say that Father Fitzgerald burned down the school. He was convicted of arson.
Okay.
So, I mean,
Right.
a lot of things. He had a shoe factory on the corner of St. John's Park where Shalat Tavern is now. Okay, there was a shoe factory that also burned down. He owned a lot of the houses. He owned all the houses on St. John's Park and Jewett Street. That whole section he had. Look at an old map. It says J.M. Fitzgerald subdivision.
Wow.
Anybody else got a question, comment? I got one here, Bill. I hear. Hey, Marie. Marie.
Yes.
Marie.
Only one question. Why didn't they ever put a cone on that tower or Holy Cross instead of just a cross? Why didn't they finish it off?
I don't know.
Oh, no.
I don't know. I mean, the tulip was beautiful. I can't believe that they tore that down, but then I can understand if they were gonna, do that. Thank you. You're good.
All right.
Over the years, did Mother of Sorrows and Holy Cross remain connected?
It must be all right.
Your mouth.
Hold it down, Bill.
Point it directly into your mouth, don't speak from the.
Battery died. Just talk loud.
I'll repeat it.
Over the years, did our Mother of Sorrows and Holy Cross remain connected or not until recently?
No, totally separate parishes, totally in competition with each other. So, my husband went to Mother of Sorrows, but I married him anyways.
It happens, parishes and churches fall apart over years.
Thank you, everybody. Just for our own advertisement, Monday, June 16th, we're having our annual fundraiser, our Strawberry and Dessert Tasting Festival here at the Town Hall Pavilion. $10, and we'd appreciate your support. But thank Marie.
About the book at the festival, we don't know. I have to wait for Amazon, depending on how long it takes to get the proof back. And then last time we got burned a little at Christmas time, so I hate to promise that it's going to be here by the festival.
I'll message somebody that I can get in contact with for you, Marie. I have connections. Want to learn more from the Greece Historical Society and Museum? Then click that subscribe button. Hit that bell icon to get notified when there's new content coming from the Greece Historical Society. You can visit us on the web at greecehistoricalsociety.org. You can find us on Facebook at Greece Historical Society. And you can stop in at the Greece Historical Society at 595 Long Pond Road. This has been a Greece Historical Society Productions.